I guess it was May 10th. It was May 10th, my second or third day of taking summer classes here. I woke up, I was having a totally normal day. I had 2 practices that day. I had swam easily over 10,000 meters already that day. I'd lifted weights too. I guess after I finished my afternoon practice, I went to dinner with a couple friends. Went back and took a nap because I was exhausted. And I woke up and I started having some stomach pain. Noticing something was a little bit weird, but it just felt like a normal stomach ache, and it never really started to get any better. It was to the point where I was like, I'm not comfortable really standing up right now. I don't really want to walk anywhere. I tried to go to his bathroom, and I ended up actually like passing out in his bathroom. One of my friends picked me up off of the bathroom floor, and my pain was a 10. It was a 9. It was a 9 and on its way to a 10 at that point. I didn't want to go to the hospital because I just thought that I was being a baby. Cody, my current roommate at the time, he called Bree, which is our athletic trainer, and she said, just go ahead and take him to the hospital. And at that point, I mean, I could barely make it to the car, so clearly something was very wrong.
Bree just sent me a text message. I got a text message saying, Will is going to the emergency room, his stomach hurts. And, you know, of course, my first reaction is, wow, the emergency room for a tummy ache is kind of, it's kind of extreme, but okay. So I said, all right, you know, just keep me posted on how things are going, and she said, okay.
All the way to the hospital, I remember I was just screaming. That was the most uncomfortable 10-minute car ride I've ever had. I remember spilling out of the car onto the sidewalk at the emergency room. Of course, I'm coming in just in like agonizing pain, just screaming, acting like a crazy person. And the lady at the front desk of the emergency room told me, you need to relax, you need to calm down. And I just remember saying, I cannot relax. I can't get over this pain.
I was on call that night for the emergency department, and the attending called and told me the story, and I talked a little bit, and I pulled up the imaging studies and talked to the radiologist as well, and it was clear that something was wrong with him inside his abdomen. I called the operating room staff and realized pretty quickly, just based on the imaging studies, that likely he was going to need an operation, and didn't want to delay the time in order to get there and evaluate him and then called the staff in. And so they met us there at the hospital, and in the meantime evaluated him in the emergency department. He was in obvious extreme pain, rolling around in bed and very uncomfortable.
45 minutes later, I get a phone call from Bree, and she's in the room with Will, and I can kind of hear him in the background, and she said, they are going to have to do surgery, and then I hear all this commotion in the background, and she's like, Coach, I need to go, and she hangs up the phone. When things really started to steamroll, I got a phone call from Dr. Guy, and he was on call at the hospital, and he said, Coach, he said, your boy's in a bad way right now. You need to get over here. And I got into the car, backed out of the driveway, and I got another phone call. But I remember the words very, very clearly, and he said, Coach, I need to prepare you that Will may not make it through surgery. And I remember driving down 277 towards town thinking, how did we get to here?
I got in the operating room, you know, within 5 minutes. They had already started the surgery, and it was that level of concern. He had a CAT scan that showed that he had lost the blood supply to a portion of his bowel and in his abdomen, and they basically took a part of his body that was not looking good and was very dark and didn't look very like it was going to be viable. And 5 minutes later, after correcting the problem, turned into very viable, you know, healthy appearing tissue. It's pretty amazing.
As I'm getting to the hospital, the phone rings again. It was Dr. Guy, and this was 15 minutes later. And he said it was the best save I've ever seen.
You know, practicing medicine for 17 years is probably one of the most amazing things that I've seen happen. And you know, this is a situation that probably another hour, half hour, hour or so, it would not have been possible, and he would have lost that part of his body. And, you know, that's a critical portion of your body, and probably would not be here.
Waking up after surgery, they told me that my intestines had twisted into a knot, and they were black when they opened me up. They untwisted them, and really quickly they turned back to pink. And I didn't lose anything. I just had a big hole in me, and they left me open for about 2 days, just with a sponge and a tube and a big piece of plastic over me, pretty much. They pulled the sponge out and the tube and the plastic, and I guess my appendix had moved. And they took out my appendix because they said that if I had had appendicitis, the doctor probably wouldn't know where it was at whatever hospital that I went to. So it was kind of a precautionary. Now it's kind of just a story. It's a story and a big scar. Of course I had big things that I wanted to do over the summer, like going to World Championship trials, the US Open. I had to put that all on hold. Being that sick and having this major of a surgery is kind of hard to come back to, but I think it also motivated me to get back to that level. The first time I got back into a pool after May 10th was June 1st. And of course I got back into a pool thinking I'm recovering really fast, I'm gonna be all right, and swimming was very, very uncomfortable. And I don't know if I was still kind of in that state of disbelief even almost a month later, thinking, I didn't go through that much, I'm gonna be totally fine. But I guess I definitely did go through that much. The doctors told my dad it was something like, had I not come into the hospital within 4 hours, we wouldn't really be where we are today. So, I'm just so lucky that I have friends that are willing to take care of me and really saved my life, honestly.